A good way to go through this next section is going to be to open the syllabus. So go to your home page for the class that you're taking and then find the word syllabus or the link for syllabus, click on it, maybe open that on one side of your screen and then have the video that we're watching together on the other side. The example that I will show on screen is not your syllabus. You do need to read your entire syllabus, but what I'm about to do is just cover the parts of the syllabus that apply to all classes that I teach and that I believe require a little bit of explanation. So as always with any lecture, take notes, write down any questions that come up, and be sure to ask me those questions right away. If in class or Zoom, then ask me live. If it's a pure class, then send me an email. I'm sorry, a pure online class, then send me an email. It's important that you understand the syllabus because it is our agreement or contract, if you will, for the semester. And I believe the number one reason for a student having a bad experience in a class is going back to these first day items and not truly understanding what the rules and the expectation of the class is or are. I have to abide by the syllabus as well. That's why I can't make exceptions on grading for people, because if another student sees that, they could turn me into the college and I don't want to have to deal with that. So I go by the rules that are on the syllabus and I expect you to do the same. If ever you have an issue with an instructor and you go say to their boss, one of the first things their boss, the chair, whoever that person may be, would say is, get me a copy of the syllabus, and do you feel that the instructor did not go by the syllabus? These welcome videos, both covering the syllabus and the parts not covering the syllabus, are a part of the syllabus, period. You will see many parts of my on-screen demo here, which I'm opening up inside of Photoshop over here on my left, that are grayed out. And I do that just to avoid any confusion so that you don't accidentally see something on the screen here and think that it applies to you. So the specifics of your class that required an explanation would be pointed out in the Getting Started video that's located on the home page of Canvas. So your syllabus is going to look something like what I'm showing on screen. You're going to have specifics about the course. One thing that's very important is please, during the semester, only email me directly through Canvas. I showed you before, there's the link right here. When you hover over it, it says inbox. You just simply click on that. You go up here, click this thing to compose a new message. You select the course that you're in from here, or the course that you want to email me about. You're going to pick who you want to email, and usually what happens is you'll select teachers. Even though it's plural, I should be the only person that comes up. Of course, you put a subject in here and then the content of your email in the bottom, and you send it. So please do not email me at my regular email address. That is for after the semester's over, if you need to get in contact with me, or if you need to have someone reach out to me who is not enrolled in the class, you use that email and you'll find that up at the top. Another way that I do not want you to correspond with me is through Canvas comments. Now, as you'll learn, when you turn something in digitally or through Canvas, I am going to make comments on that work either through the rubric or through a little comment section at the bottom. But if you have questions about the comments that I leave, don't just simply leave another comment. Please actually copy the comment that you have a question, paste it into the email, and send it to me. The reason for this is it's the quickest way to get a response. I don't go looking inside of Canvas for all the different ways that you could possibly reach out to me, and there's a lot of them. So again, email through Canvas as I just showed you. And that brings us to a test question. Do not try to communicate with me via comments in Canvas. Email me through Canvas only. All right, let's talk about what I labeled here as reuse. Basically, don't share my content with anybody. Students have built networks where they share quizzes and stuff like that. Again, cheating in this type of class is really silly, but I just want to make it clear that you do not have my permission to share my content in any such forms. Sometimes students get permission through student services to record lectures, and I have no problem with that. The main thing here is you don't have my permission to post it online or to otherwise share it with people. There's been a lot of issues that have come up in the past, like students being filmed as part of the lecture and then that student showing up online without giving permission. Instructors going off on a political rage and a student posting that on a website and then that instructor getting hate mail from parents and so on. Okay, so this stuff would have been covered in the Getting Started video. Then you'll have a description of your course. Just make sure you're in the right course, what kind of competencies you should expect to obtain from the course, what kind of learning outcomes you'll achieve by taking the course. If there's any prerequisites for the course, they'll be covered here or listed here. Expectations. This is a good one to spend a little bit of time on. I have very high expectations for you as a student and the work that you produce. And the reason is this. If you're here just as an overview, anything worth doing is worth doing right. But if you're here because this is in line with your career, you want to be an animator or a graphic designer, then you have to think of it this way. You have the same software that professionals do. Most professionals are in a time crunch. You have the time, or you make the time like we talked about. But the idea is if you have to spend 50 hours on a portfolio piece, you should be able to make it just as good as anything that's ever been created by anybody, because you're working it, you're reworking it, and then that's what makes you be able to go faster later on. So it really comes down to, as a creative, what you're going to get hired on is your portfolio. How good of a portfolio can you develop? And if you compare the two fields in college that generally spend the most amount of homework time, pre-med students, not surprisingly, but creatives, animators, graphic designers, and it all comes back to that. If you want to work, it's not about what grade you got or how many college classes you took. It's about how good have you become at doing that work. Another expectation that we talked about was I expect that you're going to take the time to read the assignments, make checklists from the instructions in the rubrics. If you want to hear more about that, or you think, oh, now would be a good time to review what Steve said about how to do that, just go up to the videos and look at the table of contents. Well, one thing that might be up at the top of your syllabus, but if not, we're going to cover it right here, is most of the time when you watch a video, it's going to be embedded right there in Canvas. But if not, I always give you a link to it. But in case you want to have access to this website, I put the link for it on the home page. I'll show you this website in just a second, but first let's go ahead and answer this test question. The website that contains some of the instructional videos is profsteveg.wordpress.com. And up near the top of the home page, you'll see a link for the website. Now, what's good about this website, the reason that you might want to refer to it on your own without links embedded in assignments, is there's some stuff here where if you find yourself, for example, needing to do something in Illustrator and you don't know how to do it and you couldn't find it online, probably good to check out here, because I posted some various videos, and then in Photoshop I have how to do image corrections for basic things like a product shot, like say you did a three-dimensional project and you want to show it online. I show you how to get a decent photograph of that and do editing on it. Absence drop policy. Essentially, as long as you stay active in the class, you're actively turning things in, you don't have to worry about being dropped. If you want to be dropped, you have to take the responsibility and do that yourself. You go into the college's website the same way you did to sign up for a class in the first place, but only this time you're reversing the process and you're dropping the class, and then you want to follow up and make sure that you are dropped. So basically what can happen is at a certain point in the semester, I can do a little bit of house cleaning. In some cases, the college issues an email and says they want us to, and we have to get rid of students who are inactive in the class. But however, don't rely on that. Don't think like all I have to do is become inactive and Steve's going to drop me, because it depends when it happens and a lot of different factors. So ultimately, your responsibility if you do want to drop to do so. I'm going to skip past anything that has to do with grading and absences and things like that, so that I can have all of the grading stuff contained in one separate video. It's important that you keep all of your files for this class until well after the class is finished. Then you can do whatever you want with them. But during the semester, we may piggyback on projects, so it's important for you to have previous files. Also, as part of your final, you may be doing a presentation where you show earlier projects from the class. Communication, it's very important that you're checking your email and that you're checking in Canvas, and in particular, checking announcements at least a couple times a week. Sometimes what happens is in the lecture or just otherwise, I remember something all of a sudden that I should have let you know this week, and I will then send you out an email and probably update the announcement in Canvas. This we would have most likely talked about in the welcome videos. Academic integrity, very, very important. So basically, don't try to cheat your way through college. And remember, that also means like borrowing somebody else's work, whether it's written, which becomes plagiarism, but we're creatives. And if we steal from people visually, and maybe we don't even quite understand the implications of that. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time clarifying this issue. First of all, you can't turn in something in my class that you did for another instructor. And when it comes time to completing a project, simply grabbing something, an image, for example, offline and throwing some text on it is completely unacceptable for two reasons. One, using someone else's work of any kind without their explicit permission is copyright infringement. And if you use that work to get a job, you have received monetary compensation for it, so you could be liable. Now, what if you have permission to use it or can get permission to use it? I still say, for your portfolio, not good enough. And usually a couple students want to remind me that, hey, my mother's a graphic designer and she uses stock photography all the time. But my response is, yes, but ask your mother if those are the kind of jobs that she would put in her portfolio. Rarely is the answer, yes, I would put this in my portfolio. Because the problem is when you're using stock photography, a lot less of you goes into the project, a lot less of your concept, a lot less of your idea. And if you're out there shopping your portfolio around to get a job, and every time you're in a job interview, it comes up, and it will, where did you get this image from? Where did this illustration come from? And if you're answering from online, doesn't sound very impressive, not nearly as impressive as I shot that photograph, I made that illustration. That's what we want to see when we're hiring people in this industry right off, that they are creative all the way through every step of their project. In addition to those issues, you could also get the college in trouble. So if you steal someone's image and make it your own, or try to claim that it's your own, and then the college puts it on their website promoting the great work that the students have done, or you're in one of my more advanced classes where we actually design stuff for the university, then the originator of that work could sue the college. Now, another question I get is, well, Steve, you told us that we have to have 3 comps done next week, like 3 solid, well worked out ideas for this project. That's a lot to ask that we also go out and generate our own images or illustrations for the ideas. Can I use placeholder photography? And the answer is yes, if you clearly label it as a placeholder. So what I might do is if I found this image and I say, okay, this is not my image, but at least it'll get the idea across, to my classmates until I can draw this picture or whatever, something like this picture. And so what I'll do is I just click here, make a new layer, go over, grab the text tool, make sure the text is big enough, and then click and write placeholder. Maybe that's not quite big enough, so I'll grab that and multiple click till I'm in there, and let's make that like 3 times that size, maybe around 200. And then we could, for example, well, we could leave it just like that. That's good enough. But if we felt like it was really in the way too much, then what we could do is maybe, in this case, I'll change the text to a real light color. And then I could even lower the opacity a little bit on it. Now, you might be thinking, so what's the reason for this? The reason is, and we actually had this happen one time in the class, somebody brought something in and everybody liked it so much at first that I think she felt like embarrassed to say, well, I just, I brought this in to kind of show what it could look like. And then she ended up going forward, using that image with the work, and then the work got selected, and it was actually something for the college that could have got us into trouble. And luckily, the department that we were working for, because it was a popular image in that industry or used in a magazine in that industry, that instructor recognized it. We had to confront the student, and it was very embarrassing for the student, and like I said, potentially bad for the student and the college. Now, another thing that I want to mention is that you may have heard some very bad information out there about copyright law. Like I've heard that if you change the image by and then insert whatever percentage you've heard, 70%, then it's no longer copyright infringement. That is absolute garbage. As long as it can still be recognized as the original image, it is still copyright infringement. And you think, well, can somebody copyright these islands? No, they're not copywriting these islands. They're copywriting the composition that the artist took. That's why you can copyright photography. So use photography as a reference, if you use other people's photography as a reference, but don't copy it exactly. And if you don't believe me on this, let me show you something that's actually happened. You may be familiar with this poster that was designed by well-known Shepard Fairey. Got him into trouble. He got sued and he lost. This image was based on an AP photograph, and the originator of the photograph recognized it and said, hey, that's my photograph, that's my composition. You didn't even try to change it a little bit. You just took my photograph, made a screen print of it, and claimed it as your own intellectual property. Look it up. It's a very interesting read. It goes into a lot more detail than I can give you here. Let's take care of a quiz question. As a student in one of Steve's classes, I will not use any work or imagery generated by others. If I use work as a placeholder, I will clearly label it placeholder. Please don't let that go in one ear and out the other. We had a little problem with it again last semester. It's one of those things that keeps coming up, and if you're using work of other people, like I said, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're not going to make an impressive portfolio.